By the year 2050, the planet Earth has been damaged by a severe environmental collapse, leaving it nearly impossible for life to continue. A survivor named Nova moves through the empty wasteland with her oxygen supply at only 44%, searching for water. As her oxygen supply begins to run low, she receives a signal ordering her to return to her base. On her way back, she notices the remains of a bird that has turned into bones. Once back at the base, she is greeted by an elderly man called Simon, whose half-face is burned and who moves in a wheelchair. He informs her that the time has come to travel into the past. Before she leaves, Simon wishes her good luck. She quickly gets ready for the mission with a small robot called AD accompanying her. After completing the preparations, she launches a spacecraft from the dusty orange-colored Earth that now feels like a lifeless rock. When Nova sees the condition from above, she realizes it looks worse than what she had assumed. Soon they enter a nearby wormhole meant to send them back in time. Just as they were about to enter the wormhole, Nova is informed to make as little change as possible, and she is told to focus on her objective. During the journey, she realizes the wormhole behaves differently from what was expected, so they adjust the landing coordinates. This leads to a crash landing in a dark, unfamiliar forest. A boy named Nas rides a quad bike through the forest and notices the spaceship in the woods. Nas sees AD moving around. AD gets closer and asks Nas what year it is. Scared and confused, the boy answers that it is 2025. AD then asks the boy to help him and takes him to Nova. Noticing that the police are moving closer, AD asks the boy to help move the unconscious Nova away before anyone else finds her. Nas agrees and takes Nova onto his ATV. Even though they leave quickly, some police officers still notice them. The officers move closer and find the empty spaceship. Nas takes Nova and the robot to an abandoned factory where it becomes clear that Nova has somehow become younger while still unconscious. AD asks the boy for assistance, but the boy explains that he has no medical knowledge. The robot then tells him to leave and keep everything secret. Nas agrees and leaves. At the same time, a detective named Claire questions officers about the crash and the individuals who were seen leaving the area. She inspects the spacecraft and a scientist informs her that it does not appear to be from Earth. Nas returns home briefly. He realizes his father is sleeping and gathers some first aid supplies before heading back to the factory. Claire then goes to the nearest house, which belongs to Nas's parents. Claire asks the older man inside about the quad bike rider, saying they saw two people leaving on a quad. The man takes her to Nas's room. When they find that he is not there, the man tells her that Nas spends most of his time at the factory, so he might be staying at the abandoned factory. Meanwhile, Nas reaches the factory and finds that Nova has regained consciousness. She reacts by pointing a weapon at him, but he explains that he came to help and offers her something to deal with a nosebleed. Nova wonders why she has become younger, and AD explains that it could be a result of time travel. She also learns that they landed far from their intended destination and now have only 24 hours to reach it. At that moment, Claire arrives at the factory, causing concern. She notices the space suit Nova left behind, then hears a sound outside. When she goes out, she realizes that her car has been stolen. As Nas drives the stolen vehicle with Nova and AD, he asks what is happening. Nova tells him she cannot share her plans with anyone yet, but reassures him that it is for a good cause. He asks her who she is and what she is doing. She avoids giving details but tells him that if he takes them to their destination, he will be rewarded with money. He agrees, especially since the car they are using belongs to Claire. Meanwhile, Claire travels to a military base using the quad bike. The next day, she shares the information gathered from the crashed spacecraft with the general. Investigators have identified fingerprints inside the ship that match a girl named Nova. At first, they assumed the fingerprints were made by the same person over a long period of time, but they realize that the prints are all fresh. The situation confuses them because in this time period that girl is only 12 years old. While continuing their journey, Nova asks how he plans to use the money. At first, he rejects the idea, saying he will not tell her anything since she does not share details. He explains that he intends to travel to South America to reunite with his father. She then asks him if he plans to take his mother as well, and he says no. While they are still on the road, the car begins to lose speed and soon stops completely with smoke rising from the engine. At that moment, another vehicle passes by, driven by an older man named Alan. He explains that repairing the car in that location is not possible, but offers to help if they bring it to his home. With no better option, they agree and follow him, towing their car behind. When they arrive, Alan introduces them to his wife, Marion. Nas works with Alan to fix the car while Marion asks Nova to assist her in the garden. Nova seems very impressed by the natural plants, and the woman tells her it is the work of nature. Elsewhere, Claire and other officers visit the present-day Nova. They ask her parents what she was doing last night and where she was. Her parents explain that they watched a movie together and all went to bed. Claire asks to see Nova's bedroom and checks it out. She notices that Nova is drawn to outer space from the posters in her room. Claire asks if Nova has ever taken an aircraft flying lesson, and her parents tell her she has not. Even so, Claire takes the family in for further questioning. After the repairs are completed, Nova informs them that dinner has been prepared. As they eat together, Marion notices that Nova's clothing looks unusual. Nas tells her she likes goth clothes. Marion then asks Nas if he has a driver's license, and he says he does. During the meal, a news report appears identifying Nas as a missing child. Despite this, the couple chooses to support them instead of turning them in. Alan gives Nas some proper clothes, and Marion checks on Nova's condition, asking if Nas tried to kidnap her. Nova tells her he did not and that it was the other way around. Claire and her team investigate the mystery behind Nova's fingerprints found on the spacecraft. A scientist explains that the fingerprints found in the spacecraft match hers exactly, leading to a theory that they could be dealing with clones. Claire decides to talk to the present-day Nova alone and asks if she went into the woods last night, promising not to tell her parents anything if she tells the truth. Nova says she did not and was only in her home. Claire asks what Nova wants to become when she grows up, and Nova says she wants to be a jet pilot or an astronaut. Back at Alan's, the future Nova notices a police car approaching and quickly alerts Nas. They escape into nearby cornfields while Alan moves the stolen vehicle into his garage. Alan speaks with a police officer who recognizes him and is asked if he has seen the stolen car or the two individuals. He denies any knowledge. However, the hidden car suddenly shifts backward, revealing its presence to the officer. Because of this, Nova and Nas are forced to leave the area quickly. Soon after, Claire receives information that her stolen car has been located. She leaves the facility and instructs the scientists to keep the young Nova there under careful watch. The scientist attempts to explain the cloning theory to a colonel, describing how the fingerprints on the spacecraft perfectly match the young girl, which causes confusion and disbelief. Claire and several officers then head straight to Alan's house. She questions the couple about the missing vehicle and Alan tells her he found the car abandoned on the streets and brought it home. She shows them a clear photograph of Nas and asks if they have seen him recently. Alan insists they have not, trying to mislead her, but his story begins to collapse when an officer discovers clothes that clearly belong to Nas inside the house. This leads immediately to a large-scale search operation for the two fugitives, with police units mobilized across multiple neighborhoods patrolling streets, forests, and back roads to ensure no one escapes. By this time, Nas and the older Nova have already reached another dense forested area. Nas begins asking her where they are going, but she insists that he needs to trust her completely and not question her plans yet. As they continue walking cautiously, Nova suddenly notices a soldier nearby and immediately raises her advanced weapon, preparing for defense. Nas, startled, apologizes to her, thinking she is about to shoot him, completely unaware that the soldier is standing right behind him. Nova calmly instructs him to move aside, then fires at the soldier, causing his body to freeze in place. Observing the effect, Nas quickly asks about the weapon and how it works. Nova explains that the impact is temporary, non-lethal, and will wear off completely after about an hour, leaving the soldier unharmed but immobilized. After some time, Claire and her team come across the soldier whose movements have been slowed, realizing the technology involved is highly unusual. Meanwhile, the two fugitives continue moving until they arrive at a large mansion guarded by men in formal suits, each watching the perimeter with careful attention. Nova tells Nas that they have reached their destination. Because of the heavy security outside, they decide to enter the building through a ventilation passage to avoid detection. Inside, they overhear a discussion among wealthy individuals about a plan to drill into the North Pole. Nova instructs Nas to stay hidden while she goes in alone. She steps into the meeting room and immediately recognizes a younger version of Simon. She requests a private discussion, but he refuses, insisting she explain herself in front of the entire group. Nova urgently warns them not to drill for oil in the North Pole, explaining that it would release massive amounts of methane into the atmosphere, trigger severe global warming, and eventually make the planet unlivable. Despite her explanation, an older man, Simon's father, dismisses her warnings, claiming the risk is minimal. He tells the group the estimated chance of catastrophic damage is only around 0.7%, showing complete disregard for the consequences. Security immediately escorts Nova and Nas out of the mansion. Nova tries to warn them they are making a huge mistake that could affect the entire planet, but no one is willing to listen, leaving her frustrated and worried about the future. As Nova and Nas leave, Nova explains to Nas that they are trying to stop a future disaster, but their attempt to convince Simon has failed. AD tries to stop her from telling him the truth, warning that revealing too much could create dangerous consequences, but she goes on anyway and tells him everything, explaining the stakes and urgency in detail. One of the security guards at Simon's place notices Nova's image on the news and quickly calls to inform the authorities. After waiting for a while, Simon escorts his father outside. His father yells at him, warning that many people have invested heavily in this project and that it cannot fail under any circumstances. Simon reluctantly agrees with his father and heads toward his vehicle, his mind clearly conflicted and weighed down by responsibility. Nova decides to move forward with another plan which involves tracking Simon using AD so they can approach him privately without drawing attention. She carefully places the small robot under Simon's car to follow him silently and transmit his movements. Simon enters the car and drives off completely unaware that AD is hidden beneath. Elsewhere, Claire remains focused on the strange condition of the slowed soldier, observing how time seems to move unnaturally slowly for him. The scientist informs her that the soldier exhibits unusually high brain activity, which deepens her concern in the urgency of the situation. She soon receives information from a guard at the mansion, confirming that the fugitives had been there, and she immediately heads to investigate. At the same time, Nova and Nas travel toward the coast. Seeing the vast ocean deeply affects Nova, stirring emotions she has long buried after years spent in a ruined future world. Nas asks if it is her first time seeing the sea, and she tells him it is not, but it has been a very long time since she witnessed anything so alive and full of life. Nas becomes drawn to her presence, moved by her vulnerability and determination, and leans closer, trying to kiss her. During this moment, Nova gently tells him that he is too young for her and reveals that she is actually 37 years old and has come from the future. Though time travel has made her appear younger, she explains that a global environmental disaster will occur, beginning with massive flooding and followed by devastating droughts that will threaten all life on Earth. Her words leave Nas deeply worried about his own future in the decades to come. Back at the mansion, Claire reviews security footage and realizes that there is an identical girl to Nova. She also notices that the two fugitives placed something behind Simon's car. She contacts a scientist to confirm that the present-day Nova is still being held, confirming that there are indeed two versions of her. Concerned for Simon's safety and the potential consequences, she orders a special forces team to head to his residence immediately and follow the path Simon has taken. Meanwhile, Nova and Nas reach Simon's home. After retrieving AD, they enter the modern house and find Simon quietly meditating in the living room. Nova greets him and urges him to stop the drilling project immediately. Simon questions her presence, telling her to stop trespassing and to stop referring to him by his first name. Nova insists that they are connected in the future and has AD display a holographic message recorded by Simon's older self. Simon watches as his older self warns him to stop the drilling, explaining that if he continues, everything will go wrong and he will spend his entire life blaming himself for the destruction of the world. Soon, a tactical team quietly surrounds the house, moving with precision and caution. Even after seeing the message, Simon refuses to believe it, convinced it is an attempt to deceive him. As he reaches for his phone to contact the authorities, Nas impulsively takes Nova's weapon and points it at him, but Nova stops him just in time. At that precise moment, the tactical team bursts into the house along with Claire. A gunshot rings out, and Claire sees Nova collapse to the ground. She immediately rushes to check if Nova is still alive. It is later revealed that AD moved in front of Nova and took the bullet, destroying the small robot. Nova survives the attack but is physically weakened and shaken by the shock. Nas, stunned and deeply shaken by what he has witnessed, quietly slips away from the scene without being noticed. He continues running until he reaches Alan's house, where he frantically explains to the old man that Nova has been captured by the authorities. Feeling responsible for all that has happened, the boy breaks down completely and Alan comforts him. After some time, Nova regains consciousness in a hospital room with Claire beside her. Claire asks if Nova is willing to assist her, and Nova explains that her purpose is to stop Simon's plan in order to prevent a future disaster. She tells her that Simon himself sent her here from the future to stop the disaster. Claire then goes to the base and questions a scientist who was checking AD about the possibility of time travel. He responds that it could exist in theory but not in practice yet. The scientist tells her that the serial number from the objects they were examining points to a future timeline. He also adds that the technology used is far more advanced, indicating that it was made by future humans. At that moment, AD, who is being repaired, suddenly activates, grabs the advanced weapon, and moves away. Claire and the scientists try to stop the robot but fail. Shortly after, Claire sees the young Simon walking nearby and tells him that the evidence suggests Nova is truly from the future and was sent by himself. Simon dismisses Nova's claims as an obsession with environmental issues. Soon, his father arrives and takes him, telling Claire that their lawyers will be in touch with her. Meanwhile, at Alan's home, Marion contacts different hospitals in an attempt to locate Nova, but she is unsuccessful. Alan and Marion comfort Naz. Soon after, Naz notices AD outside and runs toward it. The robot has lost most of its power and collapses. In its final moments, it informs Naz that Nova is being held at a military base and is not doing well. AD tells Naz that Nova needs help to return to the future. After delivering this message, the robot shuts down again. Determined to act, Naz takes the weapon that AD was carrying and heads toward the base with Alan, who drops him off near a checkpoint where he is quickly detained. Inside an interrogation room, a colonel tries to question Naz about his actions. Instead of responding, Naz pulls out the weapon and fires at the colonel and another soldier, causing their movements to slow. He then moves through the facility and finds a scientist working on Nova's spacesuit. Naz takes a suit but leaves the scientist unharmed. Eventually, he locates Nova, puts the suit back on her, and carries her while attempting to escape. At the same time, Claire is walking through the building when she notices the slowed soldiers and realizes what has happened. She rushes toward Nova's location, but the girl is already gone. An alarm goes off throughout the building, alerting everyone to the situation. Naz manages to bring Nova to her spacecraft, which is being held at the base. Inside, she expresses gratitude for his help. Before leaving, Naz hesitates but eventually exits the ship and watches as it lifts into the night sky. Claire finds him outside and confronts him about his actions, but he remains silent as the spacecraft disappears. Nova returns to the future, but because she was unable to complete her mission, nothing has changed. The world remains empty and lifeless. Her spacecraft is discovered by one of her teammates, and Nova is taken to a small enclosed area to recover. Once she has rested, her body returns to its original adult form. She steps outside and meets the older Simon, explaining that the time travel process had reversed her age and that her earlier attempt failed because he did not believe her in the past. She also tells him that returning again could be dangerous for her condition and says she will not engage in the mission anymore. Simon apologizes, but then points out that something in the timeline appears to have changed. At that moment, a child approaches Nova and calls her his mother, which surprises her. Soon after, an older version of Naz appears and is revealed to be the child's father. Her interaction with Naz has changed the future, and now she is married to him and has become the mother of his child. Nova then walks with the boy into the wasteland where he notices the same bird skeleton seen earlier. The child asks about birds and she tells him that those were creatures that once flew in the sky long ago. She explains that humans were so greedy and wanted more than the Earth could provide, ultimately ruining everything. This moment makes Nova realize that the future must be changed for the sake of the next generation. With renewed determination, she decides to attempt the mission again, but this time she plans to return to the exact moment she left and confront Simon more directly. Nova travels back and reappears where Naz and Claire are, with only a minute having passed for them. She greets them briefly and signals for Claire to return the advanced weapon to Naz, which she allows without resistance. Together, Nova and Naz set out for the North Pole to confront Simon again, and Claire lets them go. During their journey, Naz notices several similar spacecraft in the sky and asks about them, and Nova suggests he wait to understand their purpose. When they arrive, both put on white clothing suited for the icy environment and approach the area where Simon and his father are addressing a crowd. Simon shows hesitation about continuing the drilling project, influenced by Nova's earlier warning. But his father remains determined to proceed, telling him that this was his biggest project and he should not stop it when it was going to come true. As the event continues, Nova and Naz use their weapons to slow down the guards, causing panic among the people gathered there. Even after being warned again, Simon's father attempts to activate the drilling operation. Nova reacts quickly and stops him by firing at both him and the drilling controls, preventing the machine from operating. Seeing this, Simon becomes emotional and expresses regret for not believing her earlier. With his decision changed, Naz asks her not to use the freezing gun on him. Nova agrees and they leave the location. It is later revealed that the other spacecraft seen earlier have been sent to different parts of the world where environmental damage is a threat. News reports indicate that their presence has forced global leaders to hold an emergency meeting. Afterward, Nova takes Naz back to Alan's house. Before parting, they share a brief farewell, and when Nas wonders if they will meet again, Nova gives an uncertain response. Alan then arrives and presents a repaired version of AD as a surprise. Nova returns to her ship and travels back to the future. Nas, now comfortable with Alan and Marion, enters the house, but soon notices Claire arriving outside. She questions him about the appearance of the spacecraft across the world and whether they are connected to the future. Nas confirms that they are and suggests they may return again if needed. He also explains that Nova has gone back to her own time. Satisfied with his answers, Claire releases him and returns his quad bike. As Nas rides again, he notices a passing car with the present-day Nova sitting inside. Understanding that their paths will cross again in time, he follows the vehicle to get close to her.